Evening, everyone, and welcome to the Planning and Development Committee of Tuesday, January 2nd, 2004. As we gather today, I would respectfully acknowledge on behalf of Council and the community that the City of Pembroke resides on the unceded traditional territory of the Algonquin people. We thank the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years. It is with this statement that we honor and respect the Algonquins on whose land we reside. Members of the committee, before I open the meeting officially, I just want to wish everybody a Happy New Year. And I want to also make just a short little comment about the tremendous challenges that we faced last year with many things, and that how your great strengths as committee members and as members of council have brought us forward in a positive way. And, many things have happened. If you look at the building permits, for example, from last year, and, pending COVID and whatever, we've had a stellar year. But that doesn't happen because people aren't working together. Again, wishing you all a Happy New Year. I hope that we'll move forward in a positive vein. We all have different opinions and different strengths, and I think that'll make this council really ring in the new year. I'm optimistic that we'll see more growth take place, especially with our dedicated staff that we have that are always, looking for opportunities to make the city grow. So again, thank you for everything you've done. Look forward to working with you in the new year, with your worship as well at the head of the ship. And I will call this meeting to order. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof, your worship?
Mr. Chair, in respect to 7A, I'll be declaring a perceived pecuniary interest in respect to that matter.
Thank you. Noted. Any other disclosures of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. The approval or amendment of the meeting agenda. We need an approval. Moved by Councillor Purcell, seconded by Councillor Plummer. Questions? Those in favour? Carried. The approval of the minutes, the Planning and Development Committee of November 7, 2023. Moved by Councillor Fernier, seconded by Councillor Purcell. Questions? Errors, omissions? Those in favour? Carried. Planning and Development Committee of December 5th, 2023. Moved by Councillor Keel, seconded by Councillor Plummer. Errors, omissions? Seeing none. Those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Any business arising from the minutes? Seeing none, we'll go to item 7A, and his worship has removed himself as he has declared a conflict. James W. Point Motor Holdings Incorporated subdivision request to transfer future lot 46. Hello, Ms. Soriel, welcome.
Hello, Happy New Year to all.
Same to you.
So our first application, first file tonight is the James W. LaPointe Motor Holdings Plan of Subdivision. As you know, it proposes 45 lots for single-family dwellings, as well as parkland and stormwater management ponds. The property received draft plan approval in 1998, and then it received amended draft plan approval in 2019, and a subdivision agreement was approved in 2023. And as part of the draft plan approval, one of the conditions was that a future lot 46, which is owned by the city, was agreed in principle to be transferred to Mr. LaPointe. So the owner now would like to proceed with the transfer of lot 46 as per the conditions of the draft plan approval. This would permit this lot to be used as a building lot following a rezoning application. At the November 7th, 2023 Council and Caucus meeting, staff was directed to continue negotiations related to the transfer of this land as per the conditions of draft approval and obtain an appraisal and declare the land surplus. So the proposed lot has a frontage of 61 feet by a depth of 101 feet, and it would still allow 60 feet to remain in city land that would provide access to the parkland and to the stormwater management pond, and this would be adequate access to get to the pond and to the parkland. So an appraisal was done by Rivington Appraisers in November of 2023, and Rivington's appraised the land at $1,250. They said without the development of this subdivision, Lot 46 would not exist, as it would be landlocked, since it would not front on a public street. The developer has spent a lot of time and money clearing the land, putting services in, putting telecommunications in, electrical, gas services, and the developer has completed all the studies required for that above work. So therefore, based on the information that Rivington's has indicated, that the land at this point is worth $1,250. The city did declare this land surplus at its meeting of November 21st, 2023. And the city has posted on its website the surplus declaration for the property. So the requirements of the city's sale and disposition of land policy has been met. So the cost of lot 46, according to the Rivington appraisers, is $1,250 plus HST. The developer has paid for all the survey costs, and he will pay for all the costs associated with transferring the lot to himself. And the developer will also pay for the appraisal costs should the city agree to sell Mr. Lapointe the lot. This additional building will generate additional taxes, or this additional property will generate taxes for the city. So if committee direction is provided, a bylaw will be prepared for the January 16th council meeting, approving the sale of the potential lot 46 to James W. Lapointe Motor Holdings, Inc.
Questions, Councillor Keel, Councillor Purcell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Happy New Year to you as well, and to all the other councillors here, and your worship in the gallery. This matter was before council previously when we were looking at declaring this surplus. So I'm not going to repeat Ms. Sorial's report, other than to say that I agree. Obviously, this lot would not be a lot without the James W. Lapointe Motor Holdings, Inc. Plan of subdivision. Certainly, they've worked very well with the city, and this new subdivision, Mr. Chair, is going to be providing dozens of new homes at a time when we badly need them. So I see no issue with us selling the lot directly to the said corporation, and I would move that we accept the recommendation of the planning director.
Motion on the floor by Councillor Keel. Is there a second? Councillor Purcell? You also wanted, you had a comment, Councillor Purcell? Go ahead. Thank you. Further comments from members of council in regards to this development? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in favor? Against? Carried unanimously. Thank you. This will allow future growth and, as Councillor Keel said, much needed housing. His worship has returned to the chair. Item B, parking bylaw fees. Councillor Sorial. Miss Sorial, sorry. I see the C in front of Sorial. Go ahead. My apologies. Go ahead.
No problem. So at a recent committee meeting, the committee had asked that staff review the parking bylaw fees. The Ontario Municipal Act authorizes a municipality to impose fees and charges on for fees and services and activities done on behalf of the city. The city manages 147 metered parking spaces and 633 parking stalls within the city's downtown core. The methodology to determine the proposed fees were based on a review of the time and costs associated with providing this service. As well, a parking fee and fine review of several municipalities took place. And some of these municipalities were within Renfrew County and other Ontario municipalities within the same population range as the city of Pembroke. And the city of Pembroke's parking fees and fines are typically lower than the average of the other municipalities that were surveyed. So you'll see that I have a chart here, and it's based on the chart bunches the parking fines in by the existing charge. So right now we have an existing charge of $50 for school bus loading zones, parking trailers in city lots during prohibited hours, and parking on private property without authorization. So I'm suggesting that all of those $50 fines be increased to $75. Now, the third column, the additional annual revenue, that means what I did was I looked at the 2023 tickets that were issued in those three categories and used those numbers and then multiplied it by the extra $25, and it came out to $1,650 in additional revenue. And the final column shows the range that I found that the municipalities were charging in those three categories, and the range was between $30 and $80. So the next section is a $25 fines, and so I'm suggesting that they go to $35, and based on the number, and you can see there's quite a few $25 fines, that they be increased by $10, and based on the number of tickets that were issued in 2023, we could see an $8,540 additional revenue generated. And again, the municipalities that were surveyed, the range of these fines were between $30 and $40. So I tried to stay within the range. The next one is in regards to like electrical vehicle parking. And right now we charge $125. And I was suggesting that that go to $150. We only saw one ticket last year, so we would see a minimal amount until, you know, the electrical vehicle parking spaces start to take off. And I found that no municipalities polled had fines for electric vehicles. The next category was parked at an expired meter, and right now we pay $10, and that's been there. That amount has been there for quite a few years. I was suggesting we go to $20, and that would generate another $4,410 in revenue, and the range is between $25 and $30, and we'd be below the range there. In regards to the $20 parking tickets, I suggested going up $10 to $30, which would generate $3,900, and again, the range would be between $30 and $40. Parked in a fire route, right now we charge $150, suggested going up to $200 because the range was between $50 and $300. So we only issued 2 tickets for fire routes last year, so we'd only see possibly a $100 increase. Parked in a disabled space, I suggested leaving it at $300. The range is between $300 and $350, and most municipalities charge $300. In regards to parking permits, I'm suggesting that we increase the monthly rate from $40 to $55 a month, the 6-month permit from $200 to $250, and the yearly from $350 to $400. Now the Cockburn lot near Algonquin College, we've always had special rates for the students there, and we've charged based on semester and for the whole school year. So right now we're charging $180 per semester, and we're suggesting going up to $220 per semester. And then for the whole school year from $281 to $321. And again, I did poll Algonquin College, and they do charge $223 per semester and $337 for school year. They do charge $91 a month, but I'm suggesting that we keep our monthly rate at $55. And the last one is the parking meters. So right now we pay 50 cents per hour. I'm suggesting that go up to $1 per hour, and the range is between $1 to $3 per hour on the surveys that are the municipalities that I surveyed, and that would create an additional revenue of $9,900. And sorry, the additional revenue for the parking permits would be $2,500 if that was approved. So by increasing the fees, staff is attempting to ensure more of a cost recovery. Further, by increasing the fees and fines as proposed and assuming the same amount of fees and fines in 2023, then we're looking at approximately an increase in revenue of about $31,000. There would be a cost, though, to reprogram the meters should council approve that as well. PBIA has not had an opportunity to provide their comments on this report, so I will look to you for direction.
Discussion, Councillor Keel?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll approach this backwards to Ms. Sorial. In terms of the meter fees, I do understand that they have been at the 50 cents per hour for quite some time, and I think it's even been quite a long time. And I'm thankful that Ms. Sorial did poll other other municipalities, and we find that even if we were to increase it from 50 cents to $1, we would still be at the lowest of the range of all of her research. I think everything goes up in price. That's a reality of the world. And certainly when it comes to, when it comes to municipal services, including parking, there's staff that a lot of people don't see when they attend at the meter and put their coin in, but there's staff that go and take the money out of the meter. There's staff that enforce the parking meters. And all of these costs are not only going up, but in the last couple of years are growing up quite drastically. Even with the proposed changes, we will still not be fully cost recovered. Having a parking authority system will still be costing the taxpayers money from the general revenues. This is simply trying to, I'm not even sure it's closing the gap, but it's at least trying to lessen the gap. When it comes to the parking lots, again, I'm thankful for the research that we were provided by Ms. Sorial. I think at the end of the day, really the only thing there that's of any worth speaking about is that we are offering a bit of a discount to our Algonquin College students as compared to the college. But I can tell you from my days down in Windsor and in Kingston, strangely enough, that was not actually unheard of. Oftentimes the municipal parking fee was cheaper than the school's parking lots. And that's why I was as popular as I was living on campus, because I was able to get a parking sticker for across the street from my residence hall, which was literally right on campus. And so even though I didn't have a car, I was still able to get a ticket for other friends and whatnot to use. When it comes to the fines, so I took a far more in-depth look at the fines. Mostly because just as I was skimming through, it was more a matter of just some things stood out for me that didn't necessarily make sense. For example, parking in front of a fire hydrant was the same $25 charge as if you had a for sale sign in your car on public property, and I thought, well, those two aren't really comparable. Somehow parking. Parking in an unmetered spot in a metered area. So for example, there's the white lines and you see a little bit of a gap and there's no meter and you say, well, I'm going to park there instead of parking at a meter. That was the same fine as blocking an entire parking lot. And I thought, well, those two aren't comparable either. Some of you received an email from me. Some of you received a printout from me. So what I did is I sort of started looking through the fines, not so much based on the existing fine fee, but more what I thought level of importance was. And so I broke it down into three categories, one being safety and disruption to core government services, so things like parking in a fire route, parking in front of a hydrant, parking in a school bus loading zone, to public policy / private property disruption, so the electric vehicles, the disabled parking spaces, again, blocking driveways and things like that. And then your purely regulatory ones, which is, you're parked at a meter that's expired and things that really don't go to safety or aren't disrupting necessarily any third parties from using their driveway or whatnot. So I did today pass along sort of my own fine matrix. I'll let, do you want to speak to yours or do you want me to just?
You can.
So for example, Councillor Lafreniere took a look at it and parked so as to obstruct another vehicle and parked blocking a vehicle. I had that as a low disruption, and Councillor Lafreniere thought, well, actually, I think that might be a medium disruption. So I think by having a matrix and by looking at the intensity of what we're trying to stop and the importance of what we're trying to stop, I did produce a bit of a different grid while still maintaining much of Miss Soriol's ranges and whatnot. Not all of them are in the same range as hers, but certainly I tried to maintain them. So I would ask that councillors consider maybe taking a higher view look at the fines, and you know, certainly it's not about we're certainly not trying to keep people from putting food on their table and whatnot, but at the end of the day, I think some of these fines have fallen, I think, quite far down. Even parking in an expired meter, $20. I'll be honest with councillors around this table. I've had people tell me that, frankly, at the moment it's $10. They'll roll the dice on it. They don't care if they get the $10 fine. Frankly, their meal in the restaurant is probably significantly more than the $10 fine. So I think when we're looking at fines, I do think they need to keep up with the times. I think they shouldn't, except for things that are important, like fire hydrants and fire routes and school bus loading zones and some of the bigger ones. They certainly shouldn't knock out a person, but there should be, they should feel a pinch. They should be persuaded to not break the law and to make sure that they are, that they're sharing the parking facilities and the roads and whatnot with everyone else. Now, I do think in consultation with the deputy mayor, we know the PBIA has not had an opportunity yet to weigh in on this. So I think what we thought we would do, since this is a bit of a lighter night, is that we would have this discussion amongst ourselves today. But then instead of having a vote on it, I think there's at least a couple of us that would like to table it to hear back from the PBIA, but we didn't want to waste this evening's opportunity either. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Obviously, you did quite a bit of research and some balancing as to what would be fair and what wouldn't be. Councillor Fernier?
Yeah, good work, Colleen, and good work, Councillor Keel. I said, a lot of people probably wouldn't take the time that he took to go through this and prioritize it. I agree that, we make so many changes to our parking fees that maybe an overlook, and I love the way that you've categorized it, safety and what's just regulatory. So I'm wondering, yes, I would be happy to motion to table this, so Colleen can go through the summary that Councillor Keel so gracefully presented us. And keeping in mind the two issues I did have is I feel that if someone is parked blocking another vehicle from leaving, that is a safety hazard as well, not to mention a great nuisance if that individual has to be somewhere important and can't get out. So I think those two should be moved up. But anyway, motion to table? Oh, not yet. Okay, not yet. We're going to discuss it more.
Deputy Mayor,
Okay,
you had your hand up, and your worship.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, so we just want to have a little discussion tonight before we table it. So last year or the year before that, I think it was last year, the PBA made a trade-off with the city with the new parking map, and council agreed to extend the hour at the market lot from 2 hours to 3 hours, and then the Shamrock Park also, a deal was made on that, which has been very successful. So customers now have 3 hours to shop downtown instead of 2. So the PBA were very thankful for that, and then we backed off on the free parking meters downtown, which I've advocated for the last few years, but it's a challenge. There's a trade-off. And then we have a new parking map, and then the city has in the budget, hopefully council will support it for new extra lighting down at the near Kojiko, the underpass there, for security at nighttime. So that's what we've been working on with the city, and so we have a PBA meeting on Tuesday night, and Ms. Soria will forward the information to Bethia, the director of the PBA, and then they will bring back input. Thank you.
Very good, your worship.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Certainly, I commend Councillor Keel and would support this different approach in terms of trying to categorize and in fact, accomplishing categorizing the different severity. The only comment I would make is that whenever I was going through and looking at what other municipalities were doing, there's three that I think we're on the same page in terms of starting off with parked on a fire route being a high level of safety concern. And so that's why in terms of $200 and looking at what other municipalities were charging, my suggestion was going to be $250. It was actually going to hit it a little harder, seeing as the severity or the safety risk. The next one, again, you've hit it on the head, is a high level, again, is parked in a disabled spot. So again, trying to provide for parking for individuals with disabilities and that very nature. And so I was going to suggest $325, which is still lower than the high end, according to Ms. Sorio's research. And the only other one that you've categorized it, Councillor Keel, as low, but was the expired meter. Again, I was just looking at what other municipalities were charging and was going to suggest 35 for that. But outside of that, I largely agree with the different approach, looking at categorizing it low, medium, and high. It's just that for the ones that are high, and if you're trying to send a message that people shouldn't be parking in fire routes and endangering the lives of others, if people shouldn't be parking in disabled spots when they're not disabled, you send the message home. And you have a higher rate that's still lower than the highest rate, again, based on the research, but that should send the message home. Thank you.
Your worship. So, Councillor Purcell.
Thank you, Chair. Just another comment, and it was in regards to parking in an automated parking lot with expired permit was $30. Meanwhile, parked in an automated parking station lot with an expired permit is $35. So I was just thinking maybe we could just collapse that $30 column and roll it into the $35 column.
Councillor Plummer.
Thank you, Chair. Just, I also reviewed the rates. I saw looks like they've been well thought out by Councillor Keel. I think he's coming out with a good approach, and look forward to some feedback from the PBIA, but I am in support of changing the idea. Thanks.
Councillor, Deputy Mayor Abdallah.
Motion to table?
Motion to table by the Deputy Mayor. Seconded by Councillor Keel. For the purpose of the tabling, will it be bring back more information? Those in favor? Against? Carried. Thank you. Next item. Next item, request for direction, short-term rental bylaw. Mr. Hutton. Happy New Year, Mr. Hutton. Saw you in the gallery.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Happy New Year to you all as well. So in recent years, the City of Pembroke, like municipalities across the province, the country, and beyond, has seen an increase in the use of properties as short-term rentals via platforms such as Airbnb and Vrbo. With this increase in use has come an increase in concerns and complaints. Presently, the city's zoning bylaw does not explicitly address short-term rentals. The planning department to date has interpreted and enforced that as short-term rentals are not listed as a permitted use under any zoning within the city of Pembroke, they are therefore prohibited by default within the entire city. This approach has recently been met with objections and opposition by a property owner who operates a short-term rental on the same property upon which they reside. A legal opinion on the matter has been sought. Regardless, staff is of the opinion that the time would be apt to address short-term rentals. Therefore, the planning department is requesting the direction of council to research and prepare a report regarding the potential adoption of a bylaw or policy to regulate and control short-term rentals within the city of Pembroke. Further, the planning department is requesting that council grant temporary permission that the aforementioned short-term rental operator be allowed to continue operating their short-term rental as they have to date, until such a time that council has provided direction on the future of short-term rentals within the city of Pembroke. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Abdallah, Councillor Keel, Councillor Purcell.
Yeah,
Your worship.
so I support staff coming back with the report. This is very important for a couple of reasons. First of all, sure, affordable housing. If somebody owns a property they don't live in, they're renting it out from time to time, they don't live there, that takes away the affordable housing stock in the city. This is what happens in the big cities. Versus somebody that has a home or apartment and they rent out a room and they live there. That's different, you know, providing short-term stay for doctors, for nurses that are coming, which is a fact when I've talked to some people that own short-term rentals. Huntsville has a short-term licensee regulatory process where you have to register and you pay a fee. And I'm not saying that these property owners should pay a fee, but Mr. Hutton's going to come back with a bunch of recommendations. So it is important to have some kind of registry. It could be incorporated in the current bylaw that they just register their no fee, just through the regular staff process. But it is important to have some kind of a grasp on what's going on in the town. But you don't want the city to be heavily involved in the person's property business. But it does serve a purpose, and we have to make a division between people who, like I said, who own the property and live there, and they're renting out a room or a separate apartment, versus people that don't live there and are just taking advantage of the system and taking away the affordable housing stock. So I commend this coming forward, and I support you coming back with a detailed report with the different options. Thank you.
Councillor Keel, Councillor Purcell, Mayor?
Yeah, I
Councillor
think
Fernie? Sorry, Councillor Fernie, do you have your hand up as well?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Keel.
I think I agree almost fully with the deputy mayor. The fact that we're only having to address this now, actually, I think makes our city pretty lucky, because I know there's been a number of municipalities that have seen both good and some horribly bad consequences of short-term rentals. So certainly, from a basic perspective, I really don't want this municipality regulating people's property more than is absolutely necessary. I think I've said that. I think I said that before when we were talking about the recreational burning bylaw. So the current, in speaking with Ms. Sorial, the current property owner that's raising this question, that owner does live on site. One of the biggest problems that I know other municipalities have had is the short-term rentals, you know, Mr. Chair, are rented by a bachelor party or something like that, and sort of a group swoops in and you know, they don't treat the house or the neighbors as well as they would in their own house. I think that's mitigated heavily, extraordinarily heavily, if the owner of the short-term rental is living on site. They can go upstairs and knock on the door and say, hey, enough is enough. So I think differentiating between the two certainly is the very least that we could do. So I am wanting us to get a report done, Mr. Hutton, and to come back with things. In speaking with Ms. Sorial, I know questions were raised of whether or not there should be a fire inspection done at the property, and certainly the safety of everyone, including renters, should be top of mind. If we're going to have a registry and a licensing system, I am going to suggest, for cost recovery purposes, that there should be some limited fee. I would like it to be, frankly, as small as it needs to be. I don't want anybody being put off by, you know, $1,000 short-term rental fees or whatnot. But if we are going to have a system in place where staff need to spend time on this, I think some amount of cost recovery should be looked at. So again, if we want to take this slow and steady, I would at least start by looking at short-term rentals where the owner resides on site. If we want to look at other short-term rentals, opening it up a bit more, I would like to see more of a report on that. But certainly, in terms of what we have in this particular case, I think that's the very least that we should do. And I think one of the questions was, should we allow this particular person to continue for the time being? I mean, I'd prefer to hear from the rest of council, but my thought would be is that if we're going to go down the road of at least renting or at least allowing on-site owners to do it, then we probably shouldn't disrupt this current on-site owner while we're, you know, passing such a bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Purcell, Plummer, then your worship, and then Councillor Fernier.
I'm just simply would like to understand how this actually got before council. Who's the aforementioned property owner, or where's the property located? I have no idea. I think some people know around the table, but I don't really have any clue in terms of what that property is. And if we allow that person, if you look at VRBO or Airbnb, you can kind of see the properties that are listed for short-term rental across Pembroke, and it's not many. There's not many properties that are actually listed. So I'm just thinking, you know, are we making a problem for something that really isn't a problem? That being said, you know, I'm really concerned in terms of burdening staff again. You know, here we are delicensing, you know, trying to deregulate like taxi services to allow competition, those kinds of things. And I think the more that we get involved with, you know, short-term rentals, I think it just causes more issues for those people that are actually in the processes of providing that service to our community. And it is a service for our community because you got places like CNL that can't find enough places for short-term contractors to come lay their head so that they can, you know, perform work. It's a fact. So a lot of these things are not just tourists that are going in and partying. These are actually individuals that are working in the area, such as short-term nursing contractors, PSWs I know that are actually utilizing those services currently as well. So I think I have concerns with that. And then if we allow this aforementioned property, there's other properties that are still utilizing and providing those services. So are they, why are we just talking about one property owner? So from what I understand, is there an issue? Did there something go out in terms of notice that went out to the property owner? Just this one property owner?
Through you, Mr. Chair. That's correct, Councillor. As with, the zoning bylaw is enforced on a complaints received basis, not proactively. So a complaint was received regarding this particular property, and a zoning contravention order did go out, and we received a response that objected to that interpretation of the zoning bylaw. As with any other zoning contravention matter, both the property owner as well as the complainant, they are confidential. So that's why I haven't publicly noted it in my report. Regarding, I'm not sure if you want me to go ahead and speak to a few of your other points. My report that comes back will include a spectrum of options, including,
Right.
if it is council's direction, including maintaining the status quo. So the report will include a range of options. We'll be looking at what different municipalities from across the province of Ontario do already. And I can tell you from what I've seen so far, there's a wide spectrum, and it varies situationally based on each individual municipality and the type of community that it tends to serve.
I just want to make sure that we're not singling out an individual property owner, because there's other property owners, and I can provide you the list just by going through Airbnb in terms of, and VRBO in terms of the properties that are being currently advertised on the website. So I do have concerns with that. I do look forward in terms of seeing what staff brings back, because I don't know what's the difference between a short-term rental and, say, a bed and breakfast. So what, I give them a cracker in the morning and now it's bed and breakfast? So we got to be really careful in terms of what that looks like. So hopefully that takes into consideration in terms of what that, what that new direction looks like. And thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Plummer, and your worship.
Thank you. I'm just of the opinion I don't really have an opinion on short-term rentals because I don't see, it hasn't been a problem. I haven't seen a problem or heard about a problem in Pembroke that they're, taking over or, as another councillor said, removing the stock of affordable housing or just being a general nuisance in the community. As I say, another councillor mentioned that, there's a list, but there's not the big list. So I'm just of the opinion of Councillor Purcell, are we creating an issue that maybe is not an issue in this? So I, again, look forward to the report coming forward, but I don't see short-term rentals in Pembroke as being a big hazard or risk to the municipality. Thanks.
Thank you, your worship. Councillor Gill.
Thank you. So to begin, the report references a legal opinion, and just for everyone's edification, that does not involve Robert Shepherd, so that's why I'm still here. So just pointing that one out. Secondly, and Councillor Purcell makes a good point in terms of what about others? So I did the same thing as I went to the website and said, so tell me, how many Airbnbs are in Pembroke? And yes, I saw that there's no addresses, but if you live in Pembroke long enough, it's like Pembroke, Laurentian Valley. And I was able to go through and figure out which ones were in Pembroke, which ones weren't. And it speaks to in terms of what about the others. So about 3 months ago, I was approached by an individual who is a ratepayer in the city of Pembroke. He decided to start this kind of a short-term rental thing. Someone complained, and the reason why he called me then is because someone complained, and he says, I was informed by your city staff that I'm not allowed and I need to rezone. As far as I know, he was going to proceed through the process of rezoning to a different zone to permit him to do that. And so it was like, okay. And so when we're talking about one, there's a multitude of others out there that are either looking at the website or other individuals that were doing it, stopped because they were told by city staff that you weren't supposed to do this, and then, either was, I'm thinking he applied to rezone, but maybe he didn't. Maybe he just chose to be compliant and say, okay, I'm not going to do it. But there are others, and so I guess part of my point is that shouldn't everyone be treated the same? So if you're going to, in the interim, allow whoever this individual is, well, then that person should be contacted, and I know who he is because I chatted with him, so he should be allowed to start up again because he was doing it, was told to stop. And so I don't know what that looks like to treat everyone fairly, because everyone should be treated fairly. One of the points I made down here was, in terms of a suggestion, is the Tourism Advisory Committee. And I say that reluctantly, but I have that written down there because I've asked Mr. McEwen to bring forward the MAT tax concept. So whenever I did my own little research to try and figure out this Airbnb thing, I see that MAT tax is normally applied to these institutions or people as well as hotels and so forth. And I know that Councillor Keel had raised it before. Yes, we looked at it before, but maybe we should look at it again. And I know the Tourism Advisory Committee touched upon it in one meeting. Councillor Lafreniere sits on that committee as well. It was touched upon because there was a presentation, but it hadn't advanced further. So based upon the discussion here, I asked Mr. McEwen, can you bring something forward to the advisory committee so we can have a conversation about it? But I come back to the word reluctantly. There are certain members of the committee, and I think Councillor Lafreniere will agree, there are certain members of the committee that felt in the past they make certain suggestions and that council isn't really listening to them. And no, council is not bound to do what the advisory committee wants, but there was a feeling of perhaps not necessarily giving it some due in terms of what it is that was suggested. So that's that piece of it, and then the rest is a little bit of a rant. So whenever I look at our City of Pembroke website, it says that businesses are to register. That's what it says on our website since at least 2012. And I find it interesting that different individuals this is a business. They're not doing it for the heck of it. They're raising funds by having someone stay in one or more rooms in their home. And yet I'm hazard to guess that these people did not contact the City of Pembroke, because if they did, presumably they would have been met with the same answer that the fellow that contacted me, which is, no, you're not going to do this unless you apply for a rezoning. So the little bit of the rant is that there's individuals that choose to not do what they're required to do, which is to register their businesses. And furthermore, I know that some members of council have said in the past that it was, I'll say upsetting, is my words, that some people will do things and then ask for forgiveness. Well, there's some individuals that do things and don't even ask for forgiveness. They balk at it and say, I object that you're telling me that I can't do this. So those sorts of things kind of irritate me, that mentality. So I'm not going to register. I'm underneath the radar because as far as I can tell on Airbnb, there's no addresses, and short of me knowing from looking, I wouldn't necessarily know that they're in Pembroke or not. But that last bit is a bit of a rant. It's just that this mentality of I'm just going to do what I want, and regardless of the bylaws. So it just, in terms of a high level, if we're doing something, whether we're doing something or not, are we treating everyone fairly, the same? And secondly, are we going to, whatever that is, have compliance, or are people going to continue to fight with the city who's trying to just simply enforce what laws we have?
Councillor Fernier, then Councillor Keel.
So when this first came up, all I could think about was the news headlines a few years ago in Ottawa. They had some horrific incidences, and they were all in, you know, Airbnb type crime. You know, people are renting houses for short term just to, you know, run criminal activities, and then they move on. However, this is Pembroke, and yes, we have our share of crime and that type of thing, but I want to know, through the chair, what are the types of complaints we are receiving about these rentals? You know,
Can you
are they
respond to that, Mr. Otten, or do you have the
Yeah,
information?
do you have the answer now? Okay.
Through you, Mr. Chair. The nature of the complaints, which we've only received.
Ms. Sorial, did you have your hand up as
Oh,
well?
I'm sorry.
Sorry. Ms. Sorial, I'm looking at 2
I'll
different.
let Owen, sorry, I'll let Owen go ahead.
Go
and
ahead,
then
Owen,
if-
okay, I just wasn't sure whether your hand was up. Go ahead, Owen.
We have received, I believe, 4 to 5 complaints in the last, I believe, since 2019. So the complaints are generally, they are not of the specific nature, which I think you're referencing, that you see in the news reports. They are not, in certain cases, individuals may have, as you've mentioned already, gone online and just noted that there is a short-term rental operating, and then the complaint has come in. We have not, I don't believe to date we have had a complaint that is specific to a problem of noise, traffic, parking, to date.
Thank you. So, Colleen?
Go ahead, Ms. Sorial. You got to wave a little harder here.
If I could just add to Owen's comments, he's correct. We haven't received anything in regards to traffic or noise, but we have received complaints from, property owners that operate like a hotel, motel, something of that sort. They felt that, by offering, they're not paying the commercial taxes like they are. And so the Airbnb property owners can charge less than the hotels or the motels or the rooms. So we did receive a complaint like that.
So further to that,
Okay, go ahead.
that's unfortunate that they're not, but as the mayor said, some are going to register, some are going to rezone, some are not. And I'm sure there's small businesses operating the same way in the city of Pembroke, people operating a business in their home and they're not paying. So unfortunate, but I can't see, as Councillor Purcell said, at this time, I can't see tying staff up to do something if the complaints are very minor in nature. So there is a shortage, I do believe, of rentals and hotels in this area, especially at certain times of the year. So I don't know, maybe I'd just like to see a report come back saying what could we do, but I'm not sure at this point that I want to do anything that's going to take up staff time.
Thank you, Councillor Keel. No, you go ahead, go ahead. I'm going to have a little comment at the end as well. Go ahead.
So the only thing that I would say to Councillors Purcell, Plummer, and Lafreniere is that if we don't do anything, then they're actually not allowed. So if we're sitting around the table saying, well, we should let this go, it's not a big deal, we do actually have to do something, because otherwise they don't conform to any of our zones. So so if we want to allow them, we do have to make some change. Now, to go into a bit of my conversation with Ms. Sorial, my initial thought was we just allow them and we not necessarily have them register or do anything. We just allow them. Ms. Sorial did bring up, well, should they have a fire inspection? Should they have this? So I think if we get the report with the full range of how we can look at it, that might speak better to staff time or whatnot. But I feel the feeling I'm getting, I don't want to speak for anybody, but the feeling I'm getting is that we're okay with these, but that does mean we have to do something. We have to permit them to be in the city of Pembroke. So it might just be that we let any whatever operate a short-term rental, and then we just step back and let it go. But we would have to do something. So I don't think we're singling anybody out. And, you know, of course, from my conversation with Ms. Sorial, I knew that there was more than this one complaint, that this wasn't the only complaint we've received. But we do have to do something. I think the question is how involved we want to be. My position is as little involved as possible.
Councillor Purcell, and then I'll short comment, and then we're going to move forward.
Thank you. I think we just want to make sure that if we're addressing this issue, then we're addressing the home-based businesses issue. Because that's what it is. It's a home-based business. No different than the gentleman that sharpens my lawnmower blades. You go to his house. No different than the lady around the corner that cuts hair at her home. These aren't people that registered business with the city of Pembroke. So that's the bigger issue then, Mayor. I think that's the bigger issue. Then if that's the case, then don't single out the Airbnb people, single out the business owners that are operating businesses. That's a huge task. That's a huge undertaking, and I don't think we have the resources to do that. And with all the initiatives that we have underway, there's bigger fish to fry this year other than this issue. And you can't just target Airbnb, then target all home-based businesses. They're all businesses.
From the chair, and then I think we'll move on, if I may. I think it boils down to having it on the assessment roll, and I don't think the assessment people have really made a definite ruling on any of this. I don't think there is anything that says, you know, how do you handle an Airbnb or Verbo, whatever, within a home. And I think it's got to come down from the province as to what the taxation should be. And as Councillor Purcell said earlier, of course, home-based businesses, there's a lot of them. You know, I mean, we all support them. You know, I'd be lying if I say I didn't. But are we punishing, or, you know, the people that are paying the higher tax in a regular business, trying to employ people when one person's working out of his home and putting the cash in his pocket and defrauding tax, et cetera? So, you know, what's right and what's wrong? I guess what we have to do is we have to take a stand, as Councillor Keel had said. You know, do you either do it or you don't do it? Is it right? Is it wrong? That we have to make that decision. I did have somebody point out to me some time ago on Verbo, I'm not a big nut on computer, but they had a home on Christie Street listed as being waterfront. Where's the control? You're on Christie Street, waterfront. The only waterfront you'd have is there was a puddle of water in front of your house. But they're advertising that to somebody from, I don't know, God knows, Oakville, Toronto, Montreal, New York City. Hey, I can get a place, a full house at waterfront on Cecilia Street. They've never been here. So I don't know what the, you know, they come, pay the money, and they're sitting in a residential area somewhere. So I guess what has to happen is perhaps we shouldn't be focusing on individuals, maybe, but if a complaint has been issued, we have the responsibility to follow up. That is our role. We just can't say, well, maybe we should, maybe we shouldn't. If somebody has complained, our role is to follow it up. That's the way I feel from the chair. Otherwise, why have any bylaws? Have carte blanche. People can do whatever they want, whenever they want. Laws don't have to be upheld. And then you have anarchy. So I believe, I understand, you know, the person maybe legitimately said, geez, I'm going to, you know, have some people in the house. I'll get a couple extra bucks in my pocket. Okay, everybody looks for that once in a while. And I'm doing somebody a favor. Maybe they can't get a place at a hotel, motel. Maybe they're from CNL. They like my place. So, you know, they're fitting it out. They're fitting a dual role. But it's a double-edged sword. Are you doing the right thing? Are you paying the tax? Are you competing against a business that is paying people and taking the food out of somebody's mouth? I guess perhaps that could be the question. Anyway, we're going to get more information from you, Mr. Hutton and Ms. Oriel, and then we can make a proper decision on what should happen. Is everybody comfortable with that? Okay, thank you. Your Worship?
I have no issue with that, but in terms of this particular individual or the individual I referenced or the other ones, are they allowed to do it then in the meantime, or I just want to be clear on that one?
I can't make that decision as a chairman. I mean, I have an opinion. If it's wrong, it's wrong. Mr. Plummer, Councillor Plummer.
Getting something in the books, I would move that we continue on status quo and not enforce the Airbnb rules until a decision is made at a later date.
Motion, seconder. Questions? Councillor Purcell? Oh, sorry, okay, we got a seconder. Deputy Mayor had his hand up. Those in favor? Against? Motion's carried. Thank you. Item D, request for installation of a sign on city property, Zion Lutheran Church. Mr. Hutton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A request has been received from Zion Lutheran Church to place a directional sign on city property adjacent to their property at 454 Miller Street. As detailed in their attached letter and site plan in your report packages, the church wishes to install a 30 by 20 inch sign reading Zion Lutheran Church, main entrance, 454 Miller Street. The requested placement of the sign is on the city boulevard between the ingress-egress of the church's parking area and the neighboring property at 442 Miller Street. The church in their letter states that the need to have a sign installed arose from a recent emergency medical call to local paramedics. On trying to reach our building, they were confused as to where the main entry point to our building is. According to the sign bylaw, no permit shall be required for signs for public convenience, such as delivery, caution, entrance, construction, or detour. As such, the sign itself is permitted by default, but committee permission is required solely to allow for the sign to be placed on city property as opposed to private property. The operations department has commented that they have no objections to this request from an operational perspective, and committee direction is therefore required.
Thank you. A proper request has come forward from Zion Lutheran Church. What is the wish of the committee? Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Chair. Motion to allow the sign at the Zion Lutheran Church.
Motion to allow by the Deputy Mayor. Seconder, Councillor Lafernier. Discussion? Yes, Councillor Keel?
Well, I mean, I'm going to oppose this one for the same reason that I've opposed a couple things over the last few weeks, which is where do we draw the line and when do we say no to someone? The city of Pembroke, in my opinion, and this actually goes back, Your Worship, a number of years when we worked with each other and we're talking about the city's bylaw once in my office. We have a pretty strict sign policy in this city. And I mean, right now, the idea of any business who's on a corner wanting to put up a sign on the city boulevard, I mean, we could have people coming out of the woodworks asking for signs to be placed on city property. Even this particular example doesn't actually even entirely make sense to me because I understand that there was a health issue and that they needed the main entrance, but I know this church quite well. This is my grandparents' church, and if the issue was in the gym at the back of the church, this main entrance would actually make less sense than pulling up on Monroe Street. And if they were in the back pews of the church, then pulling up at Miller Street at the front would make more sense. So I take seriously the fact that they had an issue, but they also have four entranceways into this particularly large building, and so I don't have a problem with the sign. I just have a problem with us agreeing to put it on city property, and I think again, how do we say no to the next person or the next 12 people when there's a tree in the way and they would like a sign on the boulevard, or, maybe they're like my office and the footprint of the building is practically sitting on Pembroke Street. Should I come before council and say I want to move my sign out a little closer to the road? Because I can tell you there's some reason for me to want to do that, given that I think my building might have been there before the Pembroke Street was built. So I just don't like the precedent of us saying yes to one business / organization and potentially opening up the floodgates.
Deputy Mayor?
As I've stated before, every case that comes before council is different with signs and bylaws and requests. And this is a specific medical call where somebody had to stand outside, and operations have no issue with it. I have no issue with it. It was for health and safety. Could save somebody's life, a matter of seconds. So I fully support the request.
Further discussion? If not, Your Worship?
Two points, and not that I want to disagree with operations. I'm surprised that operations doesn't have any issue with it, because I'm just going by the diagram. That's where the snow gets stored during the winter, and so I'm trying to picture the in the winter time where the snow is going to go if there's a sign effectively on the city property. That's the first bit. The second one, actually, it goes back to the earlier discussion we were having. I'm aware of another location where a business has a directional sign sitting on city property, directing business to their business, which is, I'll call a side street. I do not recall it ever coming to council in 13 years. So, mind you, the business has only been there for 2, because we were at the grand opening, a number of us. Again, it comes back to this business of it's complaint-based, but yet here's someone else that's doing something that shouldn't be doing something. At least this one is doing the right thing coming to us. I just have an issue with, similar to what Councillor Keel is saying, if you're allowing it here, should you be allowing it there? What are you supposed to be doing with it?
Questions on the floor? Councillor Fernier?
Through the chair, I'm wondering if staff visited the location and determined that possibly this was the best location as well, or would there have been a site visit to determine if this was the only good place?
Through you,
Go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Chair. The operations department did visit the site. That said, I do not know that they ruled that this was the best location for it. They just received the same information you did as to the proposed location, and they said they did not object to the proposed location.
I don't know if everyone here is a churchgoer, which has nothing to do with anything, but there are 2 Zion churches on Miller Street. So it may be a question of differentiating for 911. I'm sure they would know, but, if it's Zion Evangelical or is it Zion Lutheran? The question is on the floor. I'll call the question. Those in favor? Against? It's carried 5 to 2, excuse me. Any further business before the committee this evening? Seeing none, I'll call for an adjournment. Move to adjourn. Councillor Keel, Councillor Purcell, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Welcome, everyone, to our January 2nd, 2024 Finance Administration Committee. First item called to order. Item 2, disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. Seeing none. Motion to approve the agenda. Councillor Plummer, seconded by Councillor Frenier. Those in favor? Carried. Approval of minutes from our December 5th meeting. Councillor Giacono, seconded. Councillor Purcell. Those in favor? Carried. Any business arising from the minutes? Councillor Keel.
So I will note, Mr. Chair, that this was the minutes where there was a motion by myself that was never seconded that we voted on. It was the motion to freeze council honorariums and COLA. But I will note that the motion was defeated, so the fact that it wasn't seconded and wasn't proper puts us in the same position that we're in because it didn't go forward in any event. So I'm not sure unless someone else around the table thinks there's something we need to do about that. I think it sort of took care of itself by being defeated.
Took care of itself by having no seconder. Any other business arising from minutes? No? New business. Pembroke Fire Department monthly report. We have CEO, Mr. Unruh.
Thank you, Chair. So you have in front of you the Fire Department monthly report. The chief is not here to present tonight, but I certainly can take any questions back, or if you want to send an email to me or to the chief in regards to comments, I can do that, but I'm not in the position to answer any questions in regards to his report.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Unruh. If anybody's got any questions, they can email Mr. Unruh. And we thank the fire chief for his monthly submission. Next item, confirming bylaw revision. CEO, you're handling that one?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Yeah, so this is really a housekeeping. So our current procedural bylaw, there's indications with respect to the Ontario Municipal Board, and the Ontario Municipal Board actually doesn't exist. And so it's cleaning up the language in that specific, and then also make it a little bit more generic. So attached is a generic bylaw that will be used for all future meetings.
Thank you. Motions, comments to accept the recommendation? Councillor Keel, seconded. Councillor Plummer, discussion? Seeing none, those in favor? Carried. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Keel, and I have Councillor Purcell. Those in favor? Carried.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this council meeting to order for January 2nd. I would ask everyone please take a moment to please stand for an opening prayer and reflection. Before opening this meeting of council, I would ask those who wish, each in your own way, silently join in a prayer of guidance over these proceedings. Thank you. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest in relation to the matters on the agenda this evening? Seeing none. We have a number of different minutes this evening, so looking for a motion to approve minutes. Special meeting of council, December 19th, 2023. I have the deputy mayor, seconded by Councillor Lafreniere. Those in favor? That is carried. Next was the regular meeting of council, December 19th, 2023. I have Councillor Purcell, seconded by Councillor Keel. Those in favor? That is carried. And we have adoption of minutes from various committees. So first we have Planning and Development Committee, November 7th, 2023. I have Councillor Giacono, seconded by Councillor Plummer. Those in favor? That is carried. Adoption of meeting minutes from Planning and Development Committee, December 5th, 2023. I have Councillor Purcell, seconded by Councillor Lafreniere. Those in favor? That is carried. And last, for adoption of minutes, we have Finance and Administration Committee meeting, December 5th, 2023. I have Councillor Keel, seconded by Councillor Lafreniere. Those in favor? And that is carried. For bylaws this evening, the first is 2024-01, a borrowing bylaw. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Andrew Plummer, that bylaw 2024-01 to provide for current borrowing for the City of Pembroke for the year 2024 be adopted and passed, and further, that the said bylaw be signed by the Mayor and Clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation.
Thank you. Moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Plummer, bylaw 2024-01 to provide current borrowing for the City of Pembroke for the year 2024 be adopted and passed, and further that the said bylaw be signed by the Mayor and Clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is a regular bylaw that comes forward every year. It's a bylaw to provide for current borrowing for the City of Pembroke. Excuse me. This annual bylaw is required by the Bank of Montreal to permit short-term borrowing, if required, during the 2024 fiscal year.
Thank you. If there's no discussion, call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Next is 2024-02, interim tax levy. Councillor Giacono.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by the Deputy Mayor that bylaw 2024-2 to provide for an interim tax levy for the year 2024 be adopted and passed, and further that the said bylaw be signed by the Mayor and Clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, awaiting your signature, Your Worship.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Giacono, seconded by the Deputy Mayor, that bylaw 2024-02 to provide an interim tax levy for the year 2024 be adopted and passed, and further that the said bylaw be signed by the Mayor and Clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Councillor Giacono.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Treasurer's provided me with a little overview. This bylaw is to provide for an interim tax levy for the year 2024. People may ask, well, what is that all about? Section 317 of the Municipal Act allows municipalities such as our own to establish an interim tax levy prior to the adoption of the necessary cash flow to meet its own needs, as well as the local school boards through the education portion of taxes levied. Just a general overview of why this is needed. Thank you.
Councillor Giacono. So I'll call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Next bylaw 2024-03, confirming bylaw amendments. Councillor Keel.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Lafreniere, that bylaw 2023-03 to amend the City of Pembroke's confirming bylaws for the years 2018 to 2023 be adopted and passed, and further that the said bylaw be signed by the Mayor and Clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation.
Moved by Councillor Keel, seconded by Councillor Lafreniere, that bylaw 2024-03 to amend the City of Pembroke's confirming bylaw for the years 2018 to 2023 be adopted and passed, and further that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Councillor Keel.
Yes, Your Worship. So as was noted in our last meeting, for a couple years now, since 2018, the Ontario Municipal Board has not existed. However, the City of Pembroke's confirming bylaw continued to make reference to it. So this bylaw simply amends those confirming bylaws to read with the appropriate Ontario Land Tribunal that it should have been used.
Thank you. Call the question. Those in favor? And that is carried. For Mayor's Report, good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure to bring forward the Mayor's Report. As stated at the last number of council meetings, with the onset of winter and increased risk of flu and COVID, and I would ask everyone to be mindful of this and do their part to help reduce the risk. The current indication from the health unit is that the local respiratory illness level is high. Further, as colder temperatures set in, please stay off the rivers. In recent broadcasts at CTV, there's been a number of reported fatalities over the holidays. And again, just please stay off the ice. It is not safe to be venturing onto it. As a quick reminder that to council members that we will be bringing forward brief reports from the various committees through the various council members that have been assigned to those committees. In the past, we've tried to keep below 5 minutes per council member, although sometimes some doing better than others doing that one. But anyways, despite the brevity, bringing in the report, it is very important to educate other members of council as to what's going on in the different boards and committees that we sit on. And it's important that the public knows what's taking place, because it's not just here at the standing committees and the council meetings. It's all these other committees that councillors are here, there, and everywhere trying to do their best and do their best on behalf of all the ratepayers for the City of Pembroke. And for yesterday, it was my pleasure to attend the Legion's New Year Levy. It's a great organization, the Branch 72, and certainly I was well received, and it's just nice to be able to get out there and enjoy the different festivities. Are there any notices of motion this evening? Seeing none, councillor updates. I have Councillor Lafreniere starting.
I just want to send out a big thank you to the staff and the Parks and Recreation at the pool and the rinks. And I also want to thank the sponsors that came and sponsored the free swims and skates. It wasn't a pretty sight, but I put my skates on for the first time in 25 years and went to 2 of those toddler parent and taught or grandparent and taught skates. And I was really happy that I showed my granddaughter that even I can't skate, so don't be afraid. But anyway, compliments. The rink was in great shape. There was a lot of people out enjoying it, and a lot of people that could skate a lot better than me. So Happy New Year, everyone.
Thank you, Councillor Keel.
Thank you, Your Worship. So on Boxing Day, I had the opportunity to attend Rocking for Veterans at the Pembroke Curling Club. It was a really good evening, again, filled with local talent. This was an evening put on by Jake Weckworth, one of our other local great talents, who is also the grandson of former councillor Gary Severin. So Gary and I had an opportunity to catch up, and it was very nice to see him. The event raised $3,400, and that money is being donated to music healing veterans. So this is, there's many groups across the country, but this is certainly a local group where they help treat non-visible mental health issues. So veterans who sign up are given a lesson guitar to learn with, and if they progress and make it through the whole course, they're given their own free guitar. So it's a very laudable group here locally, and one that I hope everyone will take a moment to support should another event come up. Festival Hall update, Hotel California tribute to the Eagles is coming up on January 9th. Funny in a good way, January 20th, The Ottawa Valley Talent Showcase, put on by Kitchissippi Productions, is February 10th, and I think at least a couple people around this table are going to be involved in that in one way or another. And Abamania with Adele, Shania, and the Bee Gees. Not even remotely sure how that group came together, but that tribute band will be February 14th, if anybody is still wondering what to do on Valentine's Day. Thank you, Your Worship.
Deputy Mayor?
As Chair of the Finance Committee, I just want to reiterate and let the public know, it's on the city website, that the finance budget meetings begin this Thursday at 9 a.m. till 3 p.m. and Friday also. And then on January 15th at 6 p.m., there's a public meeting in council chambers. And then on February 2nd from 9 till 3. The meetings are open to the public in the gallery here, and also to be televised live on YouTube. And we just want to wish everybody Happy New Year. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other councillor updates? Seeing none, confirming bylaw, Councillor Plummer.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, second by the Deputy Mayor, that bylaw 01-2024 to confirm the proceedings of the regular meeting of council of January 2nd of 2024 be adopted and passed. And further said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation.
Moved by Councillor Plummer, seconded by the Deputy Mayor, that bylaw 2024-01 to confirm the proceedings of the regular meeting of council of January 2nd, 2024 be adopted and passed, and further that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Those in favor? Carried. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Keel, seconded by Councillor Frenier. We are adjourned.